Welcome to Notebook Nuggets. You've sent us your thoughts and highlights on this concept of flow. You know, that state Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about being completely absorbed. So today we're going to dig into what that really means for you, and how you might actually find it more often.
Yeah, our goal here is really to understand how you can tap into those moments. Not just being productive, but like deeply engaged, where time just kind of warps, and you feel that real sense of fulfillment.
Right.
It's funny, we often think happiness comes from, I don't know, more money, a bigger house, external things. But the research, it points much more towards something internal. Csikszentmihalyi suggests a huge chunk of our happiness comes from managing our attention, basically. Getting into flow.
Changing our consciousness, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get right into it then. What exactly is this flow state? I mean, what does it feel like when you're in it?
Well, at its heart, flow is about total immersion, complete involvement in an activity. It's that feeling when you're so focused on what you're doing that, well, everything else just sort of fades away.
Okay, fades away. So it's more than just like concentrating hard.
Oh, yeah, it's deeper.
Yeah.
It's absorption. Your focus narrows right down onto the task.
Right. And what are the signs? How would I know if I'm actually experiencing flow?
There are a few key things. Intense concentration is definitely one. Like your mind isn't wandering off to your shopping list or worrying about tomorrow.
No room for irrelevant thoughts.
Precisely. And another really interesting one is that self-consciousness just vanishes.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not thinking, how am I doing or what will people think? You're just doing the thing.
Okay, I see.
And then there's that classic one. The sense of time gets distorted. It can fly by. Hours feeling like minutes. Or sometimes weirdly stretch out.
That time thing, I think loads of people can relate to that. You get sucked into something and suddenly it's dark outside. Can you give some like everyday examples? Where might this happen?
Sure. Think about maybe a programmer deep into solving a really tricky bug. So focused, they forget lunch entirely.
Yeah, okay.
Or a musician practicing a difficult piece. An hour goes by, feels like maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Even something physical, like rock climbing or maybe surfing, your whole attention is just on the next move, the wave, your body's response. It's that complete engagement.
That makes sense. It's about being fully there. You know, the material also brings up how we often chase happiness through like external stuff.
Yeah.
Achievements, possessions. How does flow kind of push back against that idea?
Well, it challenges it directly, really.
Yeah.
The evidence, it suggests that once our basic needs are met, things like a higher income don't reliably lead to much greater long-term happiness.
So winning the lottery doesn't guarantee bliss forever.
Apparently not. There's often a temporary spike, sure, but people tend to drift back to their previous happiness levels. It's called hedonic adaptation.
Okay, so the new car smell wears off, basically.
Pretty much. Csikszentmihalyi's point is that real sustainable happiness often comes more from within, from how we engage our minds, the quality of our moment-to-moment experience.
And flow is a prime example of that quality experience.
Exactly. It's about finding richness in the doing, not just in the having or achieving.
Okay, that's a big shift in perspective. So if we want more flow, how do we, engineer it? I remember reading about something called the flow channel. What's that about?
Ah, yes, the flow channel. That's absolutely key. It's basically finding the right balance.
Balance between what?
Between how challenging the activity is and how skilled you are at it. It's a kind of sweet spot.
So just doing something easy that I'm good at won't cut it?
Not usually for slow, no. If the task is too simple compared to your skills, you'll likely get bored. Your mind will wander.
Okay, boredom. Makes sense.
But on the flip side, if the challenge is way too high for your current abilities, what happens?
Stress, panic, anxiety.
Exactly. You feel overwhelmed, anxious, not flow.
So the channel is that zone in the middle, where it's tough, but doable.
Precisely. Ideally, the challenge should stretch your skills just a little bit. Enough to keep you fully engaged in learning, but not so much that it becomes frustrating.
So you're constantly pushing yourself, just slightly.
Right. And as your skills improve, guess what? You need to find slightly bigger challenges to stay in that channel. It creates this upward spiral of skill development and deeper engagement.
Ah, I see. It's dynamic. You don't just find it once and stay there.
No, you have to keep adjusting.
Okay, that's really helpful. So let's say we manage to find this channel more often. What are the actual payoffs? Why should we bother actively trying to cultivate flow?
Oh, the benefits are pretty significant.
Yes.
Firstly, that intense focus we talked about. It makes you much more likely to actually achieve what you set out to do.
Better results, basically.
Yeah, you're just more effective when you're fully immersed.
Yeah.
Secondly, think about confidence.
How does that play in?
Well, when you successfully tackle something challenging, especially in that flow state. It gives your self-confidence a real boost. You feel capable.
Right. That feeling of, I can handle this.
And thirdly, it actually improves your overall experience of, well, life. Even mundane tasks can become more engaging, more rewarding if you approach them with a flow mindset, setting goals, looking for improvements.
So you could find flow in like washing the dishes? Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
If you frame it as a challenge, how efficiently can I do this? How perfectly can I clean this pan? It sounds a bit silly, perhaps, but the principle holds. It changes the experience.
Okay. I'm willing to try. And what else?
Well, over time, engaging in flow helps you develop into a more complex individual. You build skills, you gain a clearer sense of who you are, what you enjoy, what you're good at.
A richer sense of self?
Yes. And ultimately, it often leads to this deep feeling of purpose and fulfillment.
Yeah.
Not because someone gave you a prize,
Yeah.
but because the activity itself was intrinsically rewarding.
Intrinsic rewards, the joy of doing it.
That's the heart of it.
Okay. Those are really compelling reasons. So practically speaking, how do we actually do this? How do we cultivate more flow? Any specific strategies?
Yeah, there are definitely things you can do. First up, set clear goals. You need to know what you're aiming for. Not just the big picture, but smaller steps too.
Okay. Clear goals. Check. What's next?
Then you need ways to measure your progress. How do you know if you're getting closer to those goals? Feedback is crucial. It keeps you engaged.
Right. So you can see you're actually moving forward.
And then a big one, focus your attention. This means actively minimizing distractions.
Turn off the phone notifications.
Definitely. Find a quiet space if you can. Maybe even practice some focus exercises like mindfulness to train your attention muscle, so to speak.
Attention muscle. I like that. Okay. What else?
Really learn the activity. Dig into the details, the nuances. The deeper your understanding, the more possibilities for engagement and challenge you'll find.
Get nerdy about it.
Kind of, yeah. And related to that, consciously develop new skills. Always be looking for ways to improve, to push yourself just that little bit further within the activity.
Back to that flow channel idea. Keep raising the bar slightly.
Exactly. Which also helps you avoid boredom. Once something becomes automatic, you need a new, slightly harder goal to re-engage fully.
Okay. Makes sense.
And here's an interesting one. Embrace freedom sometimes. Let go of the constant self-critique. Just trust your skills and let yourself perform.
Like those permission timers you mentioned, just create or do without judging it immediately.
Precisely. It can free you up and actually deepen the flow. Also, seek feedback, whether from others or just by regularly checking in with yourself. Are my actions actually helping me reach my goals?
Regular check-ins. Got it.
And finally, that guideline people often mention, the 4% challenge. Aim for tasks that feel just about 4% harder than your current comfort zone. That seems to be a sweet spot for triggering flow.
4%. That's specific. How do you even measure that?
Yeah, it's more of a guideline, obviously.
Yeah.
But it means aim for slightly harder, not massively harder. Maybe tighten a deadline just a touch or add one small complex element.
Okay. Manageable stretch, not overwhelming leap.
Right.
Now, we often link flow with, artists, athletes, musicians, hobbies, passions, but can you really find it in everyday life, like at work? Even a boring job?
Absolutely. That's a really important point Csikszentmihalyi makes. Flow isn't exclusive to glamorous pursuits. It's much more about your approach, your mindset.
How so?
Remember that example of Joe Kramer, the factory worker? His job was objectively repetitive, welding parts.
Right.
But he found flow by mastering every single aspect of it. He learned all the different welds, timed himself, experimented with techniques, even took on training others. He made it challenging and engaging.
So he transformed a routine job into a flow activity through his own focus and goal setting.
Exactly. Any job really can offer chances for flow if you look for them. How can I do this better, faster, more efficiently? What skills can I develop here? It's about active engagement.
And the opposite is also true. You could have a cool job but not experience flow.
Definitely. If you're constantly distracted, just going through the motions, avoiding challenges, the most potentially exciting job can feel dull and unfulfilling. It's about how you direct your attention.
Attention seems to be the absolute linchpin here. The book mentioned our consciousness having limited bandwidth.
Yes, that's a fascinating constraint. The estimate is around, 125 bits of information per second that we can consciously process.
Doesn't sound like much when you think about everything going on around us.
It really isn't. And when we try to split that attention, multitasking, checking emails while trying to write a report, we just fragment that limited capacity.
Which makes deep immersion impossible.
Pretty much. To get into flow, you really need to dedicate as much of that 125 bits as possible to the single challenging task at hand. That's what allows for that feeling of complete absorption.
So single tasking is the way to go for flow.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
For tasks requiring deep focus, absolutely.
And one last piece here. Intrinsic motivation. How does that tie in so closely with flow?
They're deeply connected. Often, flow leads to a state where the activity becomes its own reward. You're doing it because the doing itself is enjoyable, engaging, satisfying. That's intrinsic motivation.
Not for the paycheck or the praise or the grade, but just for the love of it.
Exactly. You lose yourself in the process. Think of that composer's advice you mentioned earlier. Don't expect a damn thing. Do it because you love it. That really captures the autotelic nature self-rewarding that often comes with flow.
The activity becomes autotelic, self-rewarding.
Right. The motivation comes from within, fueled by the engagement and the challenge itself.
That's a really powerful place to be, isn't it?
It really is. It's where deep satisfaction often lies.
So wrapping this up then, it seems flow isn't some, mystical talent for the lucky few.
Not at all.
It's more like a skill, a way of engaging with things that anyone can cultivate. It's about deliberately structuring our experience, focusing our limited attention, matching skills to challenges.
Exactly. And the power to find more happiness, more satisfaction, seems to be right there in how we choose to engage our consciousness.
So for everyone listening, maybe think about your own life, your work, your hobbies, even chores. Where are those potential flow triggers?
Where could you maybe increase the challenge just a notch? Sharpen your focus. Find ways to see your progress. How can you hit that sweet spot between being bored and being stressed out?
Yeah, we really want to encourage you to reflect on this stuff. Think about maybe one or two things you could try. It's not necessarily about adding more tasks.
No, definitely not. It's about changing how you approach what you're already doing.
What activities already make you lose track of time? What challenges feel exciting, even if they're a bit scary? Maybe start right there.
Experiment a little with these ideas. See what happens when you consciously try to shape your attention and engagement. You might be surprised how much it shifts your experience.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into flow. Thanks for breaking it down.
My pleasure. It's powerful stuff.
We really hope these nuggets have sparked some insights for you all. If you found this useful, please do the usual things like comment, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe for more deep dives.
Yeah, and we genuinely love to hear about your own experiences with flow. What works for you? What challenges do you face trying to find it? Let us know in the comments.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on Notebook Nuggets.